Have you ever found yourself standing in the kitchen, staring into the fridge, elbow deep in a packet of chips, halfway through a pack of Tim Tams, 3 glasses into that bottle of wine that you're only having 1 glass of, and you're not really sure why? Like, you know you're not hungry or thirsty, but you're feeling something. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's just that heaviness in your chest that you just can't quite put your finger on a name. And before you even think about it, the packet of chips is empty, the Tim Tams are gone, the next bottle of wine is open. And it wasn't because you were hungry, it wasn't because you were savoring the flavor or the taste or the textures. It was because for a few minutes, for a few moments, everything just felt just that little bit better. Now, if you've ever felt out of control around food and you've had that thought where if I start, I know I can't stop, I want you to know that you are not broken. You're not weak. It's not a lack of willpower. Emotional eating isn't something to be ashamed of. It's not a failure. It's actually a signal. It's a whisper. It's a whisper from your body telling you that something deeper needs your attention. And your body is speaking to you about it. I really wish that I could pinpoint the exact moment that emotional eating became a thing for me. I really don't know when it started, but I do know that for a long time, food was about more than just sustenance. It was a comfort, an escape, a lifeline when I didn't have the tools to navigate everything in life that life was throwing my way. And I remember one period of my life really vividly. I was a homeschooling mum of 6 young children. My husband was really unwell mentally and physically, and we were drowning financially and living in a house that was truly falling down around our ears. We had holes in the floor. Water used to run out of the bathroom and into the hallway because there was no drainage. And every night after a day of trying to hold everything together, I'd sit down once the kids were asleep with a cup of tea and a chocolate bar. Oh gosh. And it was the one moment in the day that felt like a bit of relief, a stop, a second to myself. And I can clearly remember you would much rather make love to that chocolate bar than you would to me. And did that sting. And at the time I felt embarrassed, guilty, ashamed for so many reasons. But we'll just stick to the food story today. But, you know, it was never just about the chocolate. It was a moment where I was giving back to myself when I felt like I had nothing left to give. I describe that period of my life as walking uphill in soft sand, and you just, like, every step is hard work and you just never feel like you're getting anywhere. And, you know, that small act of eating something was, you know, the only thing that was mine. So, you know, it's no wonder that our relationships with food get messy and muddy and complicated, it's no wonder that we reach, for comfort in the form of something that we can hold and taste and control, especially when everything else feels overwhelming. It gets really tricky because when we're born, food is naturally a natural comfort. You think about babies as breastfeeding, breastfeeding isn't just about nourishment to them. It's security, it's attachment, it's safety, it's connection. Food has always, since we were born, been tied to comfort in the most natural way. And what happens isn't that we start using food for comfort, it's that somewhere along the way we are taught to disconnect from the natural cues of our bodies. And we're told, whether it's out loud or by people's actions or inactions, that seeking comfort in food is wrong, something that you should feel guilty about, something you should feel ashamed of, maybe something you should hide. But what we're not taught is how to navigate life's challenges, how to sit in discomfort, how to process emotions in a way that feels safe. So we turn to what we know, to what's familiar. And that is so not something to beat ourselves up about. It's not failure. It's just a sign that we haven't been given or learnt the tools that we actually needed. I have a sentence I'm about to say, and I love this sentence so much, and I encourage you to let it sit in you for a while and see if it shows you anything. When we have undigested life experiences, we often find ourselves reaching for food to relieve the discomfort. So while you might have thought that emotional eating is a sign of weakness or a sign that something's wrong with you somehow, maybe it's that you just haven't got enough willpower, it's actually none of those things. It's so normal, for one, because it's about survival. It's what we do when we're overwhelmed, distressed, disconnected, lonely, anxious, or just haven't been given the tools or know any other strategies to process what we're feeling in any other way. If you go back to a baby, when a baby's distressed, what do? We feed it, we cuddle it, we hold it, we give it a dummy. We help it soothe. When we turn to food in times of stress, food is predictable. It's safe. It doesn't argue. It doesn't demand anything from us. It doesn't ask us to explain. And, for a moment, it works. It numbs. It soothes. It distracts. And that's where we find ourselves in a cycle, because the comfort that we receive from the food in that moment doesn't last. So when the shame sets in, because you've eaten that whole block of chocolate, you've drunk that whole bottle of wine, the packet of chips is empty, we don't take a moment and say, oh wow, I can see that something was bothering me, and I've reached for food in this moment. We don't say, what was it that I was really needing? We often, bully ourselves in that moment. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I have control around food? When will I ever have control around food? The truth is that emotional eating is not the problem. The problem is, not being able to sit with that discomfort, not being able to navigate tricky emotions or process the weight of life in a way that doesn't involve food. But if we can stop and take a moment, even in the midst of halfway through that packet of Tim Tams, and meet ourselves with compassion and with curiosity and ask, what is my body trying to tell me now? What is it that I need in this moment? When we start listening instead of blaming ourselves, that's the moment that we can start healing. So, this is a tender topic, and I, in speaking about it, can feel the familiar feelings of shame and guilt, rising up, and it really upsets me that we are taught or learn shame around emotional eating. I'd like us to learn a new way, and that is, how can we understand this? It starts so young. From the moment we start eating solids, we're taught that food needs to be controlled. As children, you can't have dessert until you've finished your dinner. If you go on a diet, you can only eat X, Y, and Z at this amount of time. At school, we learn what's considered healthy and unhealthy. At home, we hear messages that eating too much sugar is bad for us. The doctors tell us something. It's strangers even will stop you in the street and make comments. It's like it's everywhere. People with rules about what we should be eating, what we shouldn't be eating, when. And if we eat emotionally, it really can be something that people see as weak, or as though we don't have self-control, as though we've failed. I've had friends tell me that they were out for lunch celebrating a friend's birthday, and they wouldn't eat a piece of birthday cake on this special occasion because of the calories. I've had clients tell me that if they can just stick to a little tiny treat instead of a whole block of chocolate, then they'll be in control, then they'll have balance. But the real issue is not actually the food. And it might surprise you, the food never was. The problem is that we've been taught to disconnect from what our body actually needs and is asking for. So, think about this for a second. What happens as soon as you tell yourself, I'm not going to eat X, Y, and Z for a certain amount of time, or I'm only going to allow myself this certain amount of a food? Suddenly, it's all you want. It's all you can think about. And once again, it's food that seems like it's the issue. But it's actually just distracting us from really what's going on. Something much deeper than the wrapper on the outside of that chocolate bar. When we hold on to that, when we sort of grip even tighter, if I just have more willpower, if I just have more self-control, the more we obsess over it, we're not failing, we're just stuck in a loop that we weren't ever actually meant to be in. When food is your go-to form of stress relief, you'll find yourself turning to food, to relieve the stress of the rules and regulations that you've given yourself, the calories that you've allowed yourself, the size of the chocolate bar you've allowed yourself. And, think about it for a second. Like, how many times have you tried to be good with food, only to find yourself feeling even more out of control later? And I guess, you know, that's the paradox, that's the trap. It's not about more control. It's about freeing yourself from the rules altogether. And I encourage you, instead of asking, why can't I stop eating this? Ask, what was I feeling right before I started eating this? Or maybe ask, am I actually hungry? Or am I looking for comfort? Or another thing you might ask is, what would happen now if I didn't eat this right now? What feeling would I have to sit with? Or what is this food giving me emotionally? Comfort? Relief? Distraction? Or if you resonate with this sentence, if I allow myself to eat the cake, it will open up something inside of me that I won't be able to control. Or compare it to this sentence. If I allow myself to feel the sadness, it will open up something inside of me that I won't be able to control. Over the years, I've had so many conversations with women who are absolutely convinced that they have to keep a tight hold of the reins when it comes to food, or they will be out of control and they will be the size of a house because they'll start eating and they'll never stop. It feels heavy. I'm sorry to end a video feeling heavy, and so to move on with that, I have something for you to consider. Instead of waging war with your body, what if you wage peace with your body? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear in the comments if any of this resonates with you, if emotional eating has ever been something that you feel like you've battled with, or maybe you are beginning to think about it differently. So if today's second video resonated, please like, share, drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and let's continue a conversation where we can stop waging war with our bodies and we can wage peace with our bodies. Imagine a life where the relationship you had with your body was a peaceful one. So much love.